I want you to picture a scenario for a second. You're sitting next to someone.
Like maybe you're trapped in a super long meeting.
Right. Or you're shoulder to shoulder on a commuter train, and they are just loudly smacking their gum.
Oh, that is the worst.
It really is. Or, maybe they aren't even eating at all. Maybe they are just breathing a little too heavily, right through their nose.
Yeah.
Or they have a pen, and they are relentlessly, rhythmically clicking it against the desk. Just click, click, click.
Oh, the pen clicking drives people crazy.
Exactly. Now, for most of you listening, that is just a classic pet peeve, right?
Yeah.
It's a minor annoyance. It just makes you roll your eyes and try to ignore it.
Right.
But what if that exact same sound didn't just annoy you? What if it triggered, like, a literal full-blown panic attack?
Yeah, a completely uncontrollable physical reaction.
Right. Or an overwhelming, undeniable urge to just get up and sprint as fast as you can away from the person making the noise.
It's an incredibly visceral image to start with, and it highlights a reality that completely alters how a person moves through the world.
It really does.
Yeah, it changes how they experience their entire environment on a fundamental level.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking into a condition that sounds almost made up until you realize, millions of people suffer from it in total silence. And it's called misophonia.
That's right, misophonia.
We're going to explore the bizarre and fascinating, honestly, neurology behind it, look at the very real emotional toll it takes on people. And then we're going to examine how a specific telehealth network down in Georgia, Coping and Healing Counseling, or CHC, is literally changing the blueprint for how we treat it.
And how they make that treatment actually accessible to normal people.
Exactly.
This is one of those topics, I think, where the information we are unpacking today is going to be profoundly validating for a lot of people listening.
I completely agree, and I want to set that tone right here at the top. If you are listening to this and you have ever felt like you were completely losing your mind because the sound of someone simply chewing their dinner was making your skin crawl.
Or making your heart pound out of your chest.
Yes. If that's you, this deep dive is for you. You're going to feel very seen today. You aren't crazy. But to understand why, we kind of have to move past this totally relatable idea of just annoying sounds.
Right. We have to get right into the hard science of what is actually happening in the human body.
Because the clinical data is crystal clear here.
Yeah.
Misophonia is not just an ick.
Oh, no, not even close. When we look at the clinical definition, misophonia is classified as a severe, profound emotional and physical reaction to specific repeated sounds.
Right.
And the crucial takeaway we just have to establish right out of the gate is that this is not a case of someone being dramatic.
Or overly sensitive.
Exactly. It is not someone acting entitled or just, having a low tolerance for daily annoyances.
Which is, sadly, exactly what they are told by everyone around them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, stop being so sensitive. Just ignore it. Put some headphones on.
Yeah, just tune it out.
Right. But the research indicates that it is practically impossible for them to just ignore it. And that's because of the neurological mechanics at play here.
Right.
We're talking about a fundamental difference in how the brain links sound processing to the body's actual threat response.
And that physiological link is really the key to unlocking this whole condition. When we talk about the body's threat response, we are talking about the autonomic nervous system.
Okay, break that down for us.
So this is an ancient, deeply hardwired biological system. It's literally designed to keep humans alive in the face of actual moral danger.
Like running from a bear.
Exactly. When your eyes or ears detect a real threat, your brain just bypasses logic entirely and dumps adrenaline into your bloodstream so you can survive.
Fight or flight.
Right. But with misophonia, that ancient survival system is essentially being hijacked by completely harmless auditory inputs.
Okay, so if I'm understanding the mechanics correctly, is this basically like a faulty car alarm?
That's a good way to put it.
Like, when a leaf blows past the windshield?
Right, a completely harmless event.
Yeah, totally harmless.
Yeah.
But the car's sensors misinterpret the leaf as a mortal threat. Like someone is smashing the window with a crowbar.
Yes.
And suddenly, the sirens are blaring at full volume for the entire neighborhood. All because of a leaf.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly that. The sensory input, the sound of the breathing, the slurping, the chewing, that is just the leaf.
Wow.
But the alarm that goes off in the body is the exact same alarm that would go off if you were suddenly face-to-face with a predator in the wild.
That is wild.
Your brain is routing that auditory signal straight to the survival center, and that is why the physical symptoms of misophonia are so incredibly intense. It's not just a feeling of being annoyed, you know. The body actually prepares for combat.
Which totally explains the physical markers we see in the clinical data.
Okay.
Like the muscle tension, a rapidly racing heart, sudden sweating. Your body is literally preparing to either fight for its life or run for survival.
Exactly. And when your physiology is doing that, like when your bloodstream is flooded with survival chemicals, the emotional symptoms naturally follow.
Because your body is telling your brain there's an emergency.
Yes. The literature notes immediate, blinding anger, intense panic, and an overwhelming urge to just flee the room the very second a trigger sound starts.
I think taking a moment to really sit with that biological reality completely reframes why the most common advice is so entirely useless.
The take a deep breath advice.
Yes, just take a deep breath and calm down. It's useless.
It's worse than useless, honestly. It's biologically impossible in that immediate moment.
Right?
If your brain is dumping those survival signals into your nervous system, creating that racing heart and that sweating, you cannot simply reason your way out of it.
You can't outthink an adrenaline dump.
Exactly. You can't logic your way out of it. The physical reaction dictates your emotional state. It makes it impossible to just ignore the sound because your nervous system is literally screaming at you that the threat is imminent and lethal.
Okay, so that internal biological mechanism is fascinating. It's this hidden faulty alarm system going off inside the brain. But, that naturally brings up the question of how these internal alarms affect a person's actual practical day-to-day life.
Oh, massively.
Because people suffering from this don't live in a vacuum. They live in houses with spouses and kids. They work in crowded open-plan offices. They go out to restaurants.
And the sounds that trigger this response, they aren't rare exotic noises. They are incredibly common everyday sounds.
Right, they're everywhere.
The clinical data categorizes the most frequent triggers into a few specific buckets. So first, you have oral sounds.
Okay.
This includes chewing, swallowing, slipping, gum snapping, all that stuff. Then you have repetitive tapping, which covers things like pen clicking, keyboard typing, or even just someone tapping their foot.
So literally just the normal ambiance of any office or classroom in the entire world.
Pretty much, yeah. And then there are nasal and breathing sounds, sniffling, heavy breathing, throat clearing.
Stuff you literally cannot avoid.
Right. And interestingly enough, it's not strictly limited to audio. In some cases, the condition can even extend to repetitive visual movements.
Wait, really? Visuals?
Yeah, like someone constantly bouncing their leg in your peripheral vision, that can trigger that exact same fight or flight sequence for some people.
Okay, wait, hold on. I need to push back on this for a second.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of people listening might be having the exact same skeptical thought that I am right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
I hate the sound of people slurping soup. Everyone hates that sound. Nobody actively enjoys listening to someone loudly snack their way through a tuna sandwich on the train.
True.
So are we just taking a totally normal human annoyance, slapping a fancy medical label on it, and coddling people who just need to learn how to deal with minor frustrations? Like, where's the actual line here?
That is the exact friction point that makes diagnosing this so complex. And it's a completely fair question.
Thank you.
It's actually the primary distinction clinicians have to make every single day. The dividing line isn't about whether you dislike the sound. As you said, nobody likes loud chewing.
Right.
The clinical line is what we call the functional impact.
Functional impact, meaning how it actually alters the function of your life.
Precisely. It is the difference between an internal feeling of annoyance and an external modification of your behavior.
Oh, I see.
When clinicians evaluate a patient for misophonia, they aren't just asking, hey, does this sound bother you? They are looking for specific markers of functional impairment.
So I imagine if your brain genuinely thinks your husband chewing his dinner is the equivalent of a predator attacking you,
Yes.
that's going to completely ruin a family dinner. You'd just start avoiding people altogether, wouldn't you?
And that is exactly what the clinical data shows. The functional impact looks like extreme meal avoidance. We are talking about someone who literally cannot eat dinner with their spouse or their own children for years at a time because the sound of chewing is so agonizingly unbearable.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. It looks like having to request formal workplace accommodations or even quitting a job because the sound of keyboards in an open-plan office is causing daily panic attacks.
So it's really the withdrawal. Like a normal annoyance makes you roll your eyes or put in headphones for 5 minutes, but a debilitating neurological condition forces you to isolate yourself from the people you love and the spaces you need to inhabit.
Exactly. It causes severe compounding relationship strain. And honestly, that brings up a really heavy, often overlooked aspect of the condition, which is the emotional aftermath.
The guilt.
Yes, sufferers carry an immense, crushing weight of guilt about reacting negatively to the people closest to them.
Man, it's a psychological double whammy. First you have the sudden panic, and then you just have all this shame.
It is a profound burden to carry. I mean, imagine feeling a sudden, intense, almost violent burst of anger toward your partner or your best friend or your own child simply because they are breathing next to you on the couch.
Yeah, that would feel awful.
Because logically, your conscious mind knows they aren't doing anything wrong, they are just existing.
Right.
But physiologically, your body is screaming that they are a threat. That massive dissonance between what you know logically and what you feel physically creates deep, pervasive guilt.
And because of that shame, people just don't talk about it, right? They go years, sometimes decades, assuming that something is just fundamentally broken inside them.
Yeah, they suffer in silence.
They think, I must just be a bad person with anger issues. I must just be a miserable, irritable person. When in reality, they're dealing with a neurological misfiring that they have zero conscious control over.
Which is exactly why it is so critical to shift our focus to how the medical community identifies and treats this. Because once you understand the mechanics of the suffering, the next logical step is figuring out how to intervene.
Right. So let's pivot there. Knowing the severe isolation, the panic, and the intense guilt of this condition, the obvious question for anyone dealing with this is, can it be fixed? Like, how do you actually turn off the faulty car alarm?
Well, the very first step toward treatment, remarkably, is simply validation.
Just giving it a name.
Yes, the condition actually has a name. It is called misophonia, and licensed clinicians take it very seriously.
That alone has to be a monumental relief. I mean, you spend your whole life thinking you're just a bad person, and then someone in a white coat says, no, this is a documented thing.
It's huge.
The clinical literature notes that clients often experience this immense, overwhelming relief simply by learning their presentation is recognized. It's real.
The power of a diagnosis really cannot be overstated here. It fundamentally shifts the problem from a personal moral failing to a recognized clinical presentation.
You're not crazy.
Exactly. You are no longer just angry. You have a hyperreactive auditory processing mechanism. But once that baseline is established, a licensed clinician has to figure out what is actually driving the severity of it. Because misophonia rarely operates in a total vacuum.
It usually brings some friends along, right?
It does.
The data mentions it often travels alongside things like generalized anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD, and various sensory processing differences.
Yes, the comorbidities are very common.
No.
And understanding that overlap entirely shapes the mechanism of treatment. If a clinician knows a patient also has OCD or severe anxiety, they understand they aren't just treating a dislike of a chewing sound.
What are they treating then?
They're often treating an underlying state of hypervigilance or an anxiety-driven need for environmental control.
So what does the actual treatment process look like? The literature brings up cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, exposure-based strategies, and sound management techniques.
Right.
But I really want to unpack the mechanics of this because, honestly, it sounds terrifying on paper.
I get that a lot, yeah.
Like, when you say exposure-based strategies, what is the therapist actually doing? Are they strapping someone to a chair, Clockwork Orange style, and just blasting the sound of loud chewing on a loop until they magically get over it?
Oh, no.
Because based on everything we just learned about the fight or flight response, that sounds like pure torture.
It does sound like torture, and that is a very common, very understandable fear that keeps a lot of people from actually seeking help. And let me be perfectly clear. It is absolutely not about torturing the patient.
Okay.
A skilled, licensed clinician knows that simply flooding a patient with their trigger sound, just blasting the chewing noise, will only reinforce the threat response and traumatize them further.
Okay, so if it's not flooding them with sound, How do they actually widen that tolerance safely?
It requires a highly controlled, deeply regulated environment, and this is where cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, really comes into play.
Right.
CBT is fundamentally about identifying and slowly rewiring the thought patterns that happen in the fraction of a second before and during the panic. The therapist works with the patient to decouple the sound from the perceived intent.
Meaning, like, training the brain to recognize, my husband is not chewing his steak to attack me.
Exactly. And they combine that cognitive restructuring with sound management techniques.
Now, what does sound management actually entail? Are we talking about just prescribing noise-canceling headphones?
Not really. It's more about environmental control and layering. So a therapist might help a patient introduce ambient background audio.
Like white noise.
Yeah, like running a fan or playing specific frequencies of white or pink noise in the room. And this is to soften the harsh acoustic edges of the trigger sound.
Oh, I see. It reduces the contrast between total silence and the sudden click of a pen.
Exactly. They slowly, systematically reintroduce the trigger sound at a very low volume in a safe space while teaching the patient nervous system regulation techniques.
Like breathing exercises.
Like specific breathing rhythms, yes, to keep the physiological alarm from going off in the first place.
That makes total sense. So the ultimate goal of therapy here isn't necessarily to trick your brain into loving the sound of a ticking clock or a slurping soup spoon.
Oh, no, you probably will never love the sound. That's not the goal.
Right.
The goal is to reduce the distress and widen what feels tolerable. It's about turning the volume of the car alarm down from a 10 to a 2, you know?
Yeah.
So the patient can actually participate in their own life, sit through a family dinner, and exist in an office without constantly needing to flee.
It's about giving them their autonomy back.
Exactly.
But here is the massive logistical hurdle. I mean, knowing that these highly specialized treatments exist, knowing that you need nuanced CBT, careful exposure therapy, and sound management is really only half the battle.
Very true.
Because if you know exactly what kind of help you need, but you physically cannot get to a therapist who understands it, you are still completely stuck.
And that transition from the theory of treatment to the reality of access is honestly the biggest bottleneck in modern mental health care. Which is why the specific model of care provided by Coping and Healing Counseling, CHC, is such a vital case study for our discussion today.
Let's look at the CHC blueprint. So they are based down in Georgia, and the first major detail we have is that they are a 100% telehealth therapy practice.
Right, fully remote.
Fully
Up.
HIPAA compliant, completely online via secure video sessions, and they serve all 159 counties across the entire state of Georgia.
And the geographic reach there is not just a neat feature, it is a critical systemic solution.
How so?
Well, when you are dealing with a specialized issue like misophonia, or even the severe anxiety and OCD that travels with it, finding a local specialist who actually understands the literature can be nearly impossible if you don't happen to live in a major metropolitan hub like downtown Atlanta.
Right. If you live in a rural town of 500 people, the odds of having a misophonia specialist down the street are 0. You might be looking at a 3-hour drive each way just to sit in a waiting room.
Exactly. The telehealth model erases that geographic barrier completely.
It's like they've built this massive digital safety net for the entire state. I mean, someone living in an underserved rural county gets the exact same access to a licensed specialist through their laptop as someone living in a high-rise in the city.
It really levels the playing field.
But it's not just about the technology of reaching people, right? It's about the deep bench of expertise they are providing. CHC has a diverse team of over 15 licensed therapists.
And if we look closely at their roster, the variety of licenses they hold is deeply intentional. The literature highlights that they employ LCSWs, LPCs, and LMFTs.
Okay, let's decode that alphabet soup for a second. We're talking about licensed clinical social workers, licensed professional counselors, and licensed marriage and family therapists. Why is it so important to have that specific mix of credentials?
Well, let's tie it right back to the functional impact of misophonia we were discussing earlier. We talked about how this condition destroys family dinners, strains marriages, and causes teenagers to isolate in their bedrooms to get away from their parents' breathing sounds.
Like the collateral damage.
Yes. Because the collateral damage of this condition is so relational, treating it often requires more than just one-on-one individual therapy.
Right. I mean, if a marriage is on the rocks because the husband has been sleeping on the couch for 2 years to avoid his wife's breathing, fixing the misophonia is only step one. You
Exactly.
still have to repair the marriage.
Precisely. And that is why having an LMFT, a licensed marriage and family therapist on the team, is crucial. CHC is equipped to offer individual, couples, family, and teen therapy for ages 13 and up.
That's comprehensive.
It is. When a condition causes severe systemic relationship strain, you really need a practice that is equipped to heal the entire family dynamic, not just the isolated symptoms of one individual.
And beyond that, they have a diverse, culturally competent team, which is vital for building basic trust. And they treat a wide range of specialties well beyond just misophonia.
Oh, absolutely.
They handle the anxiety, the depression, trauma, and PTSD, grief counseling, life coaching, general stress. They are structurally designed to handle the whole picture of a human being's mental health.
But, we really have to address the elephant in the room regarding American healthcare here.
The cost.
Always the cost. All of that specialized care, the diverse team, the geographic it all means absolutely nothing if the patient cannot afford to turn on the laptop and actually pay for the session.
Which brings us to the financial accessibility of the CHC model, which is, frankly, the most impressive part of their blueprint. For patients in Georgia on Medicaid, they have a $0 copay. Zero.
In the current landscape of specialized mental health care, removing the financial barrier entirely for Medicaid patients is a staggering level of democratization. It's almost unheard of.
And it isn't just Medicaid. For those with commercial insurance, they take a wide variety of major plans. They take Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, and Humana.
And the out-of-pocket for those?
With most of those commercial plans, it costs the patient just $10 to $40 out of pocket per session.
Wow.
So we are looking at a highly specialized, culturally competent, statewide digital safety net that actually works within a normal person's budget.
By operating this way, they simultaneously dismantle the two largest systemic barriers to mental health care: geography and cost.
It's brilliant.
It is. Because if you are already struggling with the intense panic, guilt, and isolation of misophonia or the crushing heavy weight of depression or trauma, the absolute last thing you need is the added compounding stress of an impossible commute or a devastating medical bill.
It's deeply practical. They've made the on-ramp to getting help as frictionless as possible. And if you are listening to this in Georgia or you know someone in Georgia who needs this kind of holistic support, reaching out to them is incredibly straightforward.
Yeah. How do they get in touch?
You can call them directly at 404-832-0102. You can explore their diverse team of specialists on their website at cheattherapy.com, or you just email them at support@cheattherapy.com to get the process started.
I think the through line of everything we have unpacked today is that isolation is treatable.
I love that.
Whether that isolation is caused by the physical distance of living in a rural area, the financial barrier of high out-of-pocket healthcare costs, or the deep emotional barrier of thinking you are uniquely broken because you panic at the sound of a clicking pen, none of those barriers are permanent anymore.
That is the perfect way to summarize this entire journey. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means that if you or someone you love physically recoils, sweats, and panics at the sound of loud chewing or heavy breathing, you aren't crazy.
Not at all.
You aren't being dramatic. You are dealing with a real, clinically documented neurological response. The faulty car alarm is real, but you are not alone in this. And most importantly, there is a clinical, highly accessible help available to rewire that alarm, widen your tolerance, and get your life back, just like the statewide affordable telehealth blueprint provided by CHC in Georgia.
It is a deeply hopeful reality. But as we wrap up, if we connect this specific condition to the broader context of how we all live today, this deep dive actually raises a really compelling question.
Of that.
Well, as our modern world fills with more and more repetitive, inescapable synthetic noises, from constant digital notifications pinging on our phones all day, to dozens of mechanical keyboards clacking away in giant open-plan offices, are our environments actually becoming increasingly hostile to our basic sensory boundaries?
Oh, wow. That's a great point.
Right. It makes you wonder whether the future of our shared spaces, our offices, our homes, our public transit will require us to actively design for acoustic peace and sensory respect, rather than just relying on the medical field and therapy to help us cope with all the noise.
A faulty car alarm in a world that never ever stops blowing leaves past the windshield. Something to think about.